Sheet. I'm Michael. He's Curtis. Hi, Curtis. This is your favorite show about tech. That's what we primarily talk about here. And we're going to do that again this week. Take a, by the way, look at our website. It's specsheet.tech. We don't only stream on YouTube. We stream in multiple locations, links to all of which you can find at specsheet.tech. And by the way, pretty much every show, Curtis, that we have done since we started streaming on YouTube, your volume has sucked. I have been just like overloading, blasting you. Not overloading, my levels were right where they were supposed to be, but for some reason we couldn't figure out why yours were not where they're supposed to be. And people are writing us and saying, "Hey, what's the deal here?"
Disliking our videos, and
yes,
I actually had eggs thrown at my house. It's
been very trying for Curtis.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is though that our Patreons, which please become a member, go to specsheet.tech and click the link to become a Patreon. We have 2 paying members who are paying to not hear me.
I think the term is patron. That's what the kids are saying. It's patron, I believe.
Not Patreon?
No, no. If you subscribe on Patreon, you are a patron on Patreon. That's how that works.
I don't like it.
I don't either.
Anyway,
I didn't suggest I enjoyed this. It's just the way things are. I didn't create the system. I'm a victim of it.
You are.
So anyway, we spent about 2 hours prior to tonight's show going over everything that could conceivably be gone over in order to fix this issue. And I feel like we have now fixed the issue. In fact, as we have tested, I even at a couple of moments have felt like Curtis might be ever so slightly louder than I. But then I thought, well, maybe I'm just not speaking loudly enough. I don't know what because when you're testing, it's not the same as when you're like on, and you're doing your thing. It's different. So hopefully this alleviates and resolves all of these issues. We're certainly fed up with it, and we think you, the listening audience, are as well.
So here's the deal. At least this episode, it's either going to have been resolved to our satisfaction, or I will have post-production put the time and effort into fixing it. But let's highly hope that I don't have to do that.
And you people that wrote in about this, don't go thinking that your little letters are what got this solved. Don't go thinking that there is hope in being a good participant in the civic order and making your voice heard. And yes, you can get things done. No, don't go thinking any of that. You had nothing to do with this getting fixed. We knew it sucked without you and your complaints. So don't go thinking you were responsible for this getting fixed. We knew it and we fixed it. I just want that made clear to everybody.
Yeah, just for something deep inside my heart, I needed to hear you say that. Thank you for that. Man, when we did the premiere, because we're of the last episode, it's one of those things where you should, in any kind of well-run organization, I would have replayed the video and watched it before uploading it for Premiere, and I didn't. So when I'm sitting there ready to watch it Premiere and the audio sucks, it was like, oh man, no. I mean, my first comment was ripping myself for it. So,
but the thing is, during the week, we have lives, and so it's really hard to peel away. It's hard enough to do this, but then it's hard enough even yet to peel away longer to fix these sorts of problems. Here's the other thing. I want to address it from a technical standpoint. People have talked about all the podcasting we've done in the past and how we always had fabulous audio. And we did. We always had immaculate audio. And this is different, though, because in the past, I was running the mixer and I could control in real time everybody's levels and really keep an eye on that. And I could monitor air. In other words, I could monitor the program bus, as they say in radio.
Keep talking technical. I like it.
I could hear what you, the listener, hear, but now that is no longer the case because we each are independently streaming to one central connection point, which is restream.io. And then from there, what we are streaming to Restream gets sent out to numerous platforms, including YouTube and Rumble and so on and so forth. But we cannot hear what it is that Rumble is sending. We cannot hear what Rumble is receiving from us. Right. I hear what Curtis is sending to me, but I don't hear what Curtis is sending to Rumble. In other words, there's no way to compare. And
it's always sounded fine. Like you could hear me well, I could hear you.
Exactly
and you would think, Yeah, and
In
so
real
the
time,
tool
we
fails
sound
us,
great
yeah.
to one another.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
to you, the listening audience, it sounded
Okay,
like
so let's
ass.
just a minute now that you made up all, like, you just pretended like you heard me and you just assumed that, oh, well, Curtis said I was great at this, so let me go ahead and keep going.
Yeah,
So,
pretend you were able to hear Curtis for the prior 73 shows where you couldn't, and just leave it at that. So the DOJ is suing Apple, Curtis.
yeah.
And you really wanted to get into this, and I think that it's actually surprising to me because for the last many years, I've been saying to myself, why is it that the government got out of the business of protecting the consumer, particularly as it relates to tech? We see it everywhere. We see the stranglehold that companies have, whether it's in social media or mobile computing or the software that runs on those mobile devices. We see that people, entities, organizations have these strangleholds and nothing is done about it. Yet at the same time, as I've said previously, when you think back on what the Department of Justice did to Microsoft in the 90s because of them including Internet Explorer, a stupid little minuscule insignificant browser, including that with Windows, got the heat of the DOJ descended upon Microsoft so fast and so heavy. And to the point where, weren't Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates both testifying before Congress?
I think so, yeah.
As this was all going on. And so it was really big. And then nothing for all these years in this regard.
It's a miracle that Microsoft didn't get broken up, into a software, hardware, and professional services business because of all of that. And I agree. Like, it's, for as much as I've never shied away from being an Apple fanboy, the irony of what we're going to talk about with this, I acknowledge the problems, and I've tried, I guess, to avoid thinking of the lens of monopoly with it being the main point of what the DOJ is pushing for this, is that you basically have the fact that Apple has used its walled garden in all the different venues of smartphone, tablet, and PC, or just computer, I guess, that they've been able to make inferior products that are lagging behind market innovation because they have this walled garden, payment systems, all of that. So, like, yeah, if you look through this, if you want to kind of give a synopsis of it in your more eloquent reading voice.
I think probably this is the paragraph where I wanted to start, because it essentially lays out the claims that the DOJ is making. And they're coming at Apple as a result of the functionality of non-Apple smartwatches, Apple's limiting of access to contactless payment for third-party digital wallets, and refusing to allow its iMessage app to exchange encrypted messaging with competing platforms. So I guess this is entirely related to the fact, or I should say, Apple's decision to enable RCS, the messaging protocol that Android uses in order for people on Android essentially to have iMessage functionality amongst one another. That is going to be soon incorporated into iMessage. So when you are talking with somebody on an Android device from an iPhone, you're no longer going to be sending unencrypted messages over the old SMS, MMS system, and you're going to be able to send high-resolution photos and videos with one another. Supposedly, group chats and the like will not be as hamstrung and wrecked as they currently are when you have an Android participant in a group chat. I just really, really wonder if Apple incorporating that into iMessage is a result of this action by the DOJ, if Apple knew it was coming and they just decided to try and get ahead of it, or if it's... It just seems to me that this shouldn't even be mentioned as a part of in the laundry list of complaints by the DOJ. This iMessage encryption nonsense shouldn't even be mentioned with what's been announced.
I can see that point of view, but I think the reason they include it, so first off, I'd say that Apple introducing RCS type communication is more a result of China and the EU. And what the U.S. Department of Justice saw is that there's getting ready to be a big payday for the EU, and I guess China not so much, but for the EU and all the fines related to it. So they want to make sure they get involved in this and have a point of view. Now, the idea is that that's almost a moot point because of what Apple's agreed to do because of those other scenarios. But this is good. Like when you look at it, taking away my Apple fanboy glasses, you realize that it does make their case for them. So that's why they include it. Like it's a good indicator of past actions to support all these other areas where Apple is going to do continued monopoly-like actions with their market share. So when you hear the way, is it Merrick Garland? Is that the Attorney General? Let me make sure I had the right name there. So when he was speaking at the press conference and explains it, I mean, it actually does boil down to the fact that Apple, by the desire to control that message coming in and out and not allow it through the same systems and protections, they dumb down the experience arbitrarily to give you that green dot and the inability to share videos at high quality, all of that, and see read receipts, active communication of the dots that someone's typing. That is truly, it's a technical choice to make the experience worse for the end user. And that's true. It's really hard to get around that.
We have emails where Apple actively considered all of this and actively stated, "No, this is a pretty good lock-in. We're going to keep doing this." There's actually an email. I don't remember. It was Discovery in some case, and I don't remember what case it was. But as a result of Discovery, those emails came out, and it was revealed that executives within Apple, I don't think it was anything with Tim Cook, but it was well-known names in the company, actively and consciously discussing their knowledge of the iMessage blue bubble, green bubble thing being a great way to lock people in. And so, no, we're not doing anything with it. We're happy with it the way it is.
That's the difference between what the EU is doing, which is just like with USB-C being the standard for all charging devices. So the EU says, we're going to fine you for every day or every whatever period they do, that we're going to fine you for not being compliant. And then that's the end of what they're doing. They're not going back. And same thing with what they were going to do on text communications. It was going to be a going forward fine. Well, the DOJ is looking at this more backwards, saying that these show your monopolistic tendencies, and now we're going to extract some kind of fee or charges against you as a result of it. So the U.S. Department of Defense is going way deeper back into the catalog. It's not something
Department
we're
of
going to
Justice,
say.
you mean?
What'd I say?
Defense.
Funny. Well, yeah, I mean, the Department of Justice is going after the Department of Defense if they're going after Apple, aren't they? But yeah, sorry. But basically, yeah, we're going to go deeper into the pocketbooks. And there is some irony to think about. So then to go back to like not talking about the technical side of it, but just looking at the economic part, one of the most profitable businesses in America's economy, and the U.S. government's getting ready to dip into the pocketbook of that company. There's a whole conversation that can be had around that. Put your opinion in the comments. Let us know what you think. But on the technical side, this is something you've complained about for a long time, that Apple's walled garden means that they lag behind features. And then when they actually do release a feature for an iPhone, tablet, or even the operating system itself, it's something that other devices have already. Android has some version of it. A Google Pixel's already been doing it for 2 or 3 iterations, or a Samsung Galaxy device is doing something extra that suddenly
Lock
gets
screen
added.
widgets. Stand back, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an example of it. Like it was a technical choice with the fact that they had a monopoly on. And the funny thing is that they have, I think it was like 70% market share in one piece of it, and then another like 40, if I remember the numbers right. That's not really enough to claim full monopoly just on face value, but the business practices they were doing are similar to what Microsoft was doing with Internet Explorer, which is driving less competition, trying to get the category as a whole to do less innovative things and make sure those bubble up through them. That's a lot of the background for this case. So it's kind of ironic too when you look at something like Vision Pro. I'm just going to bring back some of your words earlier that you had said with Vision Pro. You'd like to see Apple do something new and it's okay if they fail with it. Just show you're doing something new. Maybe it's a little bit too late for them to have shown that the case has already been made against them.
You know, of all the complaints I've had about Apple over the years, probably the most disgusted I've ever been by them as a company was it was about a year and a half ago. There were a bunch of protests happening in China, and Apple released an iOS update that entirely removed the option to accept airdrops permanently from people who are not in your contact list. So, in other words, people who were protesting in China that wanted to be able to communicate with one another, but they didn't want to do it through the cellular system. They just wanted to airdrop directly, line of sight with people.
Peer-to-peer network that's happening ad hoc.
They couldn't do that any longer because of the changes that Tim Cook and Apple bent. They bent the knee to China, and they gave in to the demands of the Chinese government. And so I think that Apple has established a precedent themselves of demonstrating willingness to yield to the demands of the governments in the countries in which they operate. And so, I mean, I feel very little.
Ironically, though,
I feel very little sympathy for Apple as a result of the federal government coming after them, specifically because of their willingness to yield to the Chinese and do what they say.
It does fly in the face of that original version, that commercial that made them so popular, where they're going against Big Brother, throwing the hammer at the screen. Like, this is the exact opposite when you're partnering with, the equivalent of Big Brother.
Isn't that just the story every time? Isn't that just the human condition? Like the hippies of the 60s running around talking about the man. Now they are the man. They're every bit the man.
I go back to the sage-like words of prosecuting attorney Harvey Dent, where he said, "You're only the hero. You only live to be the hero long enough to become the villain." In that masterpiece of The Dark Knight, to Bruce Wayne, I would say it's the same thing. You become the hero, and you're the hero long enough, you're going to become the villain at some point. It's like the same idea of like absolute power, or power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like the bigger you get and the more you can do that. Like the original argument that I supported for Apple was their walled garden approach, and their maintaining of hardware and software meant that you had a cohesive experience with your user experience, your security. If you used an Apple product, then you're safe, or you should be safe. And it's easy to teach other people how to use it that are not savvy in these different product lines. You learn one product, you can probably work with the other. The problem is now we're in this world of microtransactions, and Epic and their gaming with Fortnite really bust this thing open at first to make it clear about the amount of money that you're losing as an app developer in the App Store. And it's a double-edged sword, because a lot of app developers who made a lot of money since the iPhone came out would probably never have been developers if it hadn't been for I almost said Microsoft, Apple did with the iOS App Store. But then as it grew and you get this 30% take that Apple pulls from it, you would think over time Apple would not pull so much from it. And then you have like the whole situation where subscriptions is where it starts to get murky, and you go from that power to absolute power situation where your app store is the most dominant app store, and you go to sign up for Netflix or YouTube Premium from your iOS device, and now you're paying, even though your price is supposed to be the same, the provider you're getting it from now has to take a hit because you bought the same service through Apple. So that just is ridiculous. And what Apple says is that they're protecting your credit card, your information, all of that. And so what the DOJ said in their press conference is the truth that all sounds good, but the truth is you introduced another layer of potential failure to protect your data. So now you didn't just buy that product from, I don't know what just happened there in my office. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was mine, and I looked
No,
around.
it's like something like right outside my
Structurally,
wall.
everything looks okay.
Yeah, that was just right outside my wall. I don't know what happened. We'll find out later. But But anyway, you now have an extra layer to it to where Apple now has all your data and they're supposed to pass this all and manage this transaction for you with a third party when you just want to work with a third party. If I want YouTube Premium and I happen to sign up in an iOS device, let me work with Google for that because I chose to buy their product. Or Netflix, I buy it through them. But we've had the situation where these providers are having to raise their fees, probably not arbitrarily because they like raising their fees, but they have to keep bumping it up because they have to pay the Apple tax. And enough people are coming through Apple that the Apple tax is getting bigger and bigger, and people are getting more and more bitter.
They're loving it. It's just getting better.
Apple is. But the thing is that they're stifling the market from being able to bring the prices down. So that's right. Like I won't defend that. They built an app store. They made it great. Take a cut, make it a small cut, and then stay out of the way. And then allow those transactions to happen consumer to business. Don't keep it to where it's consumer to Apple and then Apple to business. That's where you're running into issues. And like the government tries to say, and there's another layer to this, that for everything we just said about Apple working with Big Brother, at least publicly, they don't like to work with the U.S. government. Like U.S. law enforcement wants encryption to be busted for a device, and Apple claims to avoid it completely. Who knows?
That's what I found odd is one of the DOJ's complaints being Apple not facilitating encrypted communications between themselves and competing platforms. It's like, boy, the lack of sincerity in that complaint.
Right.
It's just it was just dripping with sincerity. You know, they really love that. I mean, hasn't every attorney general for the last 3 or 4 presidential administrations complained about encryption? Hasn't every FBI and CIA director for the last 2 or 3 decades complained about encryption? Just the most recent being Bill Barr when Trump was president. I remember him staying in front of a camera prattling on about encryption, and there need to be backdoors. It's just hilarious knowing that we are governed by people who know nothing about the tech that they want to govern, and knowing the ignorance of somebody like a Bill Barr to say that he thinks there ought to be backdoors in software for the government. He has no idea of like the math of that. Like he doesn't understand from a statistical standpoint that if it's a certainty in terms of statistics that if a backdoor is included in software, it is going to be exploited by people other than the intended exploiter. I mean, it is a mathematical, statistical certainty because of the nature of how software works. And
it's the reason people started locking their doors at night because
people like Bill Barr don't understand that.
Yeah, that's probably true. But
they govern us. They govern us.
Yeah.
That's the upsetting thing about it. And here's something in relation to this. As part of its response to the U.S. DOJ lawsuit, Apple confirmed it spent 3 years working on bringing the Apple Watch to Android before ultimately scrapping the idea. In its lawsuit, the DOJ uses the Apple Watch as a piece of evidence to justify its claim that Apple is a monopoly. Apple Watch is only compatible with the iPhone. Apple says that it determined an Apple Watch with Android support wasn't doable because of technical limitations. I think they mean technical money limitations.
Right. Financial limitations.
That was
technically
the limitation there. You know, it really is amazing to see the brilliance with which Apple has pulled this off, because the only reason I'm using an iPhone right now, I swear to God, the only reason is because I have for years not been able to find an adequate, enjoyable, usable, desirable watch to wear with an Android device. But there's the Apple Watch just all these years beckoning me, and then finally I just gave in and I couldn't do. I want to have a watch, you know,
Right.
and I don't want to have to pull my phone out every time I want to see what stupid notification I just received or who texted me that I don't want to talk to.
You should try out Fub Watch, because Fub Watch, it's the watch you don't wear. Like
The Fub Watch, one of the things I like about the Fub Watch is that the screen comes pre-cracked.
Yes.
So that you're not going to be disappointed ever.
That's a premium feature. It comes pre-scratched, so you don't have to worry about the first 3 scratches. They're on us.
They are absolutely right about the platform lock-in. What do they call it? I know walled garden, but there's like a platform lock, whatever they call this phenomenon. It is obvious and clear that the Apple Watch definitely locks people in. But at the same time, there's the point of view that, hey, Google has essentially been asleep at the switch for years when it came to wearable devices. They have gutted their wearable OS 2 or 3 times. The transition from 2 to 3 definitely was an entire gutting and rebooting of the entire platform. They started over from scratch. I mean, the entirely new code base. Wear OS or Watch OS or whatever Google calls their Watch OS this week is entirely different from 2 to 3. That's crazy to think about. I mean, particularly when you consider the fact that this transition from one code base to another from 2 to 3 occurred after the Apple Watch has already been in production and in the wild and being worn by consumers for probably 10 years at this point, or I don't know how long. But coming up
and
on
most
a
of those
decade.
people have worn and figured out what, like cracking the code of what is the interesting part of it shouldn't have been that hard. I mean, I go back to my old first generation Samsung watch, which would have been Tizen OS on it. That thing, it just seamlessly integrated into my phone experience. I got the right notifications at the right times, and then I had to go back to iPhone. Well, I decided to, because my family is all iPhone, and trying to share devices like our music subscription service, text messaging, me being a green bubble was getting frustrating. And then like sharing with Find My iPhone, was another issue with it. So I switched back to an iPhone, and I tried to bring my Samsung Watch with me, but it just, of course, wasn't the same experience. It was completely hobbled by just being a Bluetooth connected device. And suddenly this watch that would last me 2 days, when I connected it to my iPhone, would be done in half a day, because it was just a constant Bluetooth connection that wasn't optimized for anything or for push.
I started paying attention to these things when I was about 11. I was such a freaky little kid. And so the 1990s version of me would say, hey, government ain't got no business poking around. Oh, are you a commie? Don't you believe in capitalism? I was sold that bill of goods that just letting corporate enterprises run amok and do whatever they want, unrestricted, unfettered.
You grew up in Reagan's America.
Yes, that is the version of that political thinking that I grew up around.
Me too. Yeah.
I feel like people who lived in that bubble were sold such a bill of goods. And now the political philosophy has entirely changed now, and it's been turned on its head. And the people who used to think that way, be a good capitalist, don't let the government come in and meddle with these tech companies trying to do business. They're just trying to be capitalists and make money. Stay out of it. Well, the people who used to think that way, I don't believe think that way at all anymore. And in fact, I feel like the people who used to feel that way, their eyes have been widened, and they realize we're talking about allowing capitalism to continue on unfettered, where it relates to a company that is using child labor in Africa to extract rare earth minerals from the ground so that we can have these stupid phones in our pockets. And somebody out there wants to talk to you about capitalism in the midst of considering that. Look at your own children as you see them play in the yard or do whatever it is they do, and just imagine, by a matter of sheer happenstance and misfortune, they happen to be born in entirely different circumstances, and but for a twist of fate, a cosmic blowing of dust, quantum levels of chance, your child is your child, and in that circumstance, as opposed to extracting cadmium or some stupid rare earth element or mineral or something from the ground in Africa, while people prattle on about Apple's access to good old-fashioned capitalism.
That was a rant. That was a drop your mic rant. I like it.
I almost did drop the mic.
So, I mean, like the point that you're making there, I mean, it's a important point, because what's happening is we're trying to use government systems that can't catch up with a global world that's changed and also is playing on multiple levels. So what feels like capitalism here doesn't feel like it in another spot, and you don't have to apply the same rules across it. And that's not just in the tech world. That's when you look at a global supply chain world, our brains aren't ready to figure out what it means to process all the different variables that go along with it, because you can't define good and bad, because what is partially good practice in one place can appear to be bad practice in another, vice versa. There's just we aren't equipped yet to handle it, and I don't know when or if we ever will be.
You know, the more I'm thinking about this, the angrier I'm getting.
I mean, the thing that I would argue is
angry at Apple, and I'm getting happier that the DOJ is actually doing this to them. Honestly,
isn't it ironic? Well, I mean, like the thing is that it's like I'm an Apple fanboy, but here, like, it's almost like a wake up call. Like, I don't know why I keep telling that, because you know that already. But when it comes down to it, when you hear this and you think about it in like a sobering light of, it is true. The business practices of Apple have limited innovation all the way to the point. I'm going to bring another article that we didn't talk about.
They've also eliminated any moral authority on Apple's part.
Yeah, the thing is that they've dumbed it down so much that when they released the M1 chipset, and
I got a little story about that, by the way.
Well, yeah, that's where. So yeah, okay, good, you've got it. So basically, they've dumbed us down so much that when they released these ARM chips, yes, it's cool and it's an innovation, but it felt more groundbreaking than it really was. And these things have been optimized for the tests that they were going to be held up against. And they were counting on the tech reviewer and tech influencers to really boost things up. Yes, I like them. Yes, I think they work well. But you know what? In their dumbing down of it, they end up introducing a potential flaw, which is the article I think you're going to talk about.
Yeah, they fixed the audio issues, but they talk it's all Apple. I'm sorry, it's what's in the news. Vulnerability found in Apple's Silicon M-series chips. A major vulnerability has been found in Apple M-series silicon chips. The worst part is that it's unpatchable.
Yeah. How do you feel the day that you get that email come across?
The vulnerability, it allows hackers to gain access to secret encryption keys. This includes the M1, M2, and M3 models. The issue lies with prefetchers, components meant to predictively retrieve data before a request to increase processing speed. As remote worker, oh no, I apparently I was going to use a page 2, but no, I didn't.
Yeah, nice.
I went. So I'm sitting here with my M2 Apple Silicon MacBook Air 15-inch, and apparently it's my keys are out there.
They are. Well, you installed FireFub, right? You've installed the latest version.
You know what?
So.
Now that you mention it, I've got FireFub on here. I think everything's good.
You're fine.
FireFub has HTTPS. I don't know if we've let the listening audience know about that. But
actually, it does, but it doesn't. It's not turned on by default. So you will need to go into the settings.
I'm not sure how big. I'm not sure how big a deal this really actually is. I mean, I'll bet you. I mean, it's okay. But what I mean is from the standpoint of it being uncommon. I don't think this is uncommon at all.
Intel had the same thing happen.
Every single platform has these vulnerabilities. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't every single hardware platform have these vulnerabilities? I mean, the level of complexity is on par with software itself. So,
it's actually more. I mean, like it's
actually
multiple
on
levels.
The micro level. I mean, we're talking nanometers of precision.
Mm-hmm. And that's why software and like buffer overflow attacks like this can happen, like what they're doing, or like glitching a chip. Like it's amazing. I was watching a video of a guy. I can't remember his name right now, but basically he's a hacker. Who's been a hardware hacker for a long time, and he had someone who had several $1 million of cryptocurrency on BitWallet that they had lost the key to, and this hardware hacker glitched the chip to be able to do the same idea, get it to make the software or make the chip believe that it was in a state that it was okay to read the memory, and that would give up the encryption key. So it's the same idea and get it. So like this is not new, but the thing is that Apple has dumbed down the playing field so much that the M chip series, the Apple Silicon, so far has seemed like this amazing feat of engineering and software development and integration that it's not a surprise that there is something that came out, but the irony is that at least right now we believe it to be unpatchable. Who knows what will come out to potentially resolve this. But Intel did have the same problem. That their instruction set had a vulnerability in it that goes back all the way to the Pentium, from like the Pentium up to the I series chips. Like I can't remember the name of the exploit right now, but it was a big deal. But they had a patch that resolved it.
I just found another story here. Apparently, this actually is fixable. You just crack that MacBook Air open and put some duct tape over those caps.
There you go. It's all good.
It.
At the same time, you get 256 more gigs of capacity on your SSD drive when you do that.
Elon Musk's Neuralink claims let me just get into it. The first patient of Elon Musk's Neuralink has been presented to the public. His name is Nolan Arbaugh, and he's paralyzed from the shoulders down. I think it was from a diving accident. After Neuralink, however, he claims to have gained the ability to control a computer with his mind. He says, now I can literally
I like the way that's worded.
Now I can literally just lie in bed and play to my heart's content. Honestly, the biggest restriction at this point wasn't having to wait for the implant. It was having to wait for the implant to charge after he used all of the power. That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought this would be something that would have to recharge, but I guess the more I think about it, yeah, it would. Well, I guess whatever they're sticking in you has to have a power source.
Well, that's the thing. Once they get to Matrix level, they'll say that you are the battery, but we're just not there yet.
Why isn't that the case in this?
Yeah,
I mean that seems so easy to me. I mean, we are
you want
walking
it to tap
around,
into our
maybe
electrical
it's
field.
About differentials. It's got to be a temperature
what voltage
differential.
Are you? Yeah. How many amps do your neurons kick out? That's going to be the key. Can you imagine
77.
you go into you go in to say I have Neuralink 1.3 and I'm looking to upgrade to the 2.6 release because I'm really excited about the virtual reality Meta partnership with that, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you don't kick out enough voltage from your neurons, so I'm sorry, you can't upgrade to that."
Okay. We're kind of in the lightning round here. I'm just kind of plowing a little bit. This story bores me a little bit, but I think it deserves mentioning. Google and Apple are reportedly in talks to bring the search giant's Gemini AI model to the iPhone. Such a deal would imply that Apple can't wait any longer to bring AI to the iPhone. And yet, a researcher quietly posted something online saying that Apple engineers are suggesting the company's making significant new investments into AI that are already bearing fruit. It details the development of a new generative AI model called MM1, capable of working with text and images. So, on the one hand, it looks like Apple's not doing anything with AI, and to the point where they're going to ask Google to step in and be the AI that you find on an iPhone. Then out of the other side of Apple's mouth, it appears as though they are working on something. So the thought is that maybe the Google AI is going to actually, yes, it is going to be incorporated, but for the purpose of handling search-related things, whereas the Apple AI that they are proprietarily in-house developing is going to be related to other stuff, I guess.
Yeah, like
that
the
would make
internal
sense.
purposes.
Why reinvent the wheel? Why create your own AI to ultimately do a Google search?
Yeah, the other thing is that NVIDIA is just ridiculously ahead of all of these companies to the point to where they have to partner up to some level to build some economies of scale because
Isn't NVIDIA the most valuable company in the world? Is that true?
I thought Microsoft took that recently. Maybe NVIDIA, after their last press release, or their releases, not press release, press conference, I guess, the ridiculous amount of chipset advancements they've made in basically AI data centers is leaps and bounds above everybody, to the point to where Microsoft is basically using their stuff for Azure, or Amazon is using it for their new AI modeling system. Like NVIDIA is on a mission right now. Their robotics platform and like virtual world to iterate through potential robotics systems is just so far advanced from what I thought it was. Like, I knew that they had built chipsets that were great for this, but I didn't know the level they had advanced. Like it actually kind of snuck up on me. So I'm not surprised that Apple and Google are both like, okay, what can two competitors work together, just like they did when Apple brought Google into the iPhone in the early days, because Apple's like, there's too many pieces I have to touch to build an operating system and a phone. So I'm not going to worry about the search part of it. I'm going to let Google take care of it and build the internet-facing piece to it. They'll focus on the user interface for it. But then when they did try to do it, that was bad, so they went back to Google. But now I could see them coming together saying, Google, you keep building your side of AI, Apple will build our side of it, and then we'll compete potentially together or concurrently with NVIDIA. Because, I mean, it's a matter of time.
At least from a public perception standpoint, Apple's been in a bit of a spot over this issue. I mean, their stock price has taken a bit of a hit here and there. There have been some really influential people online who have said in recent months that they've gotten rid of all of their Apple stock as a result of the lack of activity they see from Apple on the AI front. And I have to say that from what I'm hearing here, I think that ultimately that even with what we're hearing in terms of any partnership between Apple and Google on AI, and in terms of any in-house AI being developed by Apple, I still think that ultimately the end result is going to be utterly lackluster and unexciting, and Apple will be so far behind what's happening on other platforms and what's being produced by other companies. It's going to be laughable, and I think that the people who chose to sell their Apple stock, by the way, I don't own any Apple stock, so I don't have a dog in this race, but I think the people that chose to sell their Apple stock are going to be proven ultimately to have made a good decision. I don't think good days are ahead for Apple. I think bad times are coming. And I think that primarily the reason I feel that way is just the lack of innovation I see. They look to me like a company that's utterly comfortable, and there's no innovation. They just keep producing the same phone again and again and again with minimal improvements from one generation to another. I mean, right now I'm supposed to get all hot and frothy and require a change of underwear because the next iPhone is going to have isn't going to have a button, some kind of special button. The iPhone 16.
Are you talking about the solid state buttons?
So I think so. There's a new button.
Which those came out in the 15, so I'm not sure what the...
No, there's something new that's coming out on the 16. I don't know what it is.
Okay, I'm not sure what it would be. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, again, we're not financial advisors. Don't take any of our advice on trading. But I remember back in the day when Apple stock tanked when Steve Jobs was pushed out and went his own direction. And I kept trying to say to everyone, like, Apple's going to be back. Like, I didn't doubt at all that Steve Jobs would come back. Unfortunately, I was too young and didn't have the disposable income to buy the stock that I would have to get rich off of it back then. But I don't feel so optimistic this time. There's not a Steve Jobs that I see on the horizon to come back and force innovation again. And I would say that the Vision Pro is a good example that should have been a moment where they came out, and maybe if the device and the platform didn't land just right, you would see where they're going. You would see the vision. And I don't know that I see the vision. I know there's talks of the Vision consumer device is next on the list for them to come out with, but it's just not that exciting. Like it pretty much is going to have to come from a startup to build whatever the next big thing that's going to get everyone excited. And when you look at these AI assistant devices, like the Humane and the Rabbit AI, I think is what it's called, those just aren't exciting enough. We're in a cycle of the technology around building AI, and I want to be careful because AI is going to be beneficial, but it's not going to be like this transformative thing. But it's going to be the engine that gets us to build hardware that's pushed to its limits so we can continue to maintain Moore's Law or bust past it.
In 5 years, I predict we're going to look back at how everybody is just beating off every time they hear the term generative AI. We're going to look back in 5 years and laugh at all this.
Well,
we're going to be so unimpressed with what everyone is freaking out about right now.
it's going to be like NFTs were or cryptocurrency was. But the thing is, the difference is
slap bracelets.
Right, there you go. I didn't know.
I know there are so many people who would hear me say something like that and just think I'm an old man who.
No, but you're right.
Just doesn't. I just feel like I've seen these kinds of things come along so many times where the media instructs us on what to get excited about, what to talk about, what to be jazzed about, and this feels like that.
Yeah, the thing is that it's done is. Basically, so I've been in automation and scripting.
Can I hold
junkie.
that thought just a second, because I'll forget this if I don't say it now. One of the clues to me that this is bullshit is the fact that people were just calling it AI, and then out of nowhere, someone in academia decided to insert the word generative AI because they didn't feel like they sounded smart enough when they were speaking on the topic. So they thought they'd come out with a 4-syllable word to insert before AI. And that's what they did, generative. And it's not just simply that use of that word. It's the fact that it ubiquitously was being used by everybody at the same time. And everywhere I look, I see generative AI, generative AI, generative AI. This did not, no one was saying the word generative. No one had ever uttered the word generative in their lives until 3 months ago. What is this?
Here's the other thing to go along with it. You know something's a fad when everyone is like every company out there is scared to be left behind on it. So if something is real, you're going to be like if it's the product of the future, it's going to be, oh man, we missed that. How do we build our next version of something similar, but it's our take on it? But instead what you have is organizations saying, I need to incorporate this into my business. I can't get left behind. I have to have this. I have to release my version with my name on it. But it's the exact same thing. It's based off the same models. Like there's very few people out there who are building the systems to learn the models and then release their models out there in their system. It's everyone's using what's out there and figuring out their way of having proprietary info as a part of it. And that's a fad. And people are scared to be left out. So you have to be in.
This is going back on the story I had earlier about the security flaw in the M1, M2, M3 Macs. This is page 2 that I thought I had. I just want to read this real quick. The exploit can be weaponized to get around security found in cryptography apps. For example, the researchers were able to extract a 2048-bit RSA key in under 1 hour. The researchers say this one is unpatchable because the issue lies with the microarchitectural design of the chip. Furthermore, security measures taken to help mitigate the issue would require a serious degradation of the M-series chip's performance. So they could do things from a software standpoint, but it's going to turn the chip into a big fat lemon. Researchers say that they first brought these findings to Apple on December 5th of last year, and they waited 107 days before disclosing their research to the public. I don't know why they bothered to wait. I think it was pretty apparent to everybody involved from the jump that this isn't patchable. So, what's the point?
I wonder if there's something because Apple did like the M2 chipset generation. They kind of dropped that hard when they switched to the M3 so quick. Like they gave up on M2, and I wonder if there's something about that they thought they fixed it, but it turns out they didn't. I mean, I don't know. I'm completely speculating.
I wonder if I might be getting a free Mac in the coming weeks.
Well, so like last episode, I said I want information on what Mac people think I should get. Let's hold off on that a little bit because I don't think I'm going to buy one yet until.
I didn't think I would be a part of this, but apparently I am. I'm getting a new computer, Mom.
You're getting a new computer, and you're getting a new computer. And
I didn't need Oprah. I did it without Oprah.
You did.
It's good to be me. Let's see.
Did you get some Ozempic too with that or not?
I'm on smeglutide. No, it's is Ozempic smeglutide or whatever you call it.
I can't even think of it now.
There's Ozempic, or no, that's the O'Reilly Auto Parts theme song. There's it's Ozempic.
I thought that now we're going to get a copyright strike because of that. But I really thought that was a parody. Like, who at that company did that and said, yes, this is our product.
Well, what they did was they thought, okay, let's first of all think of the demographic. Who are all the fatties? Okay. What kind of music would the fatties listen to? Okay. Hit it. Oh, Ozempic. And they're right, because I'm driving down the road in my car day after day. It's magic.
Was that Chicago who did that song? Ozempic? That was their big hit? No, what is the style? You know way more about the genre of music that would fit that than I do. So
as soon as I find out who did that, I'm going to be disgusted with myself for not knowing. As remote workers struggle with an unwanted return to office mandate from Rockstar Games, GTA 6 could miss its 2025 release window and slip into 2026. Early 2025 is currently the goal. And pretty soon, I guess it's in April, they're going to make everybody start coming back 5 days a week. It really strikes me as amazing that, like, I think I just can't believe that a company like Rockstar Games, living in the year 2024, knowing the culture, knowing the types of employees that it has, and being in the business that it's in, I just can't wrap my brain around why they would want to make these people drive into an office to work every day.
That's why that C-suite makes so much more.
I can't even begin to process it. Although the people that are being forced to come in are saying, well, Rockstar hired too many people and they need to get rid of them, and so this is really how they're going about getting rid of them.
This is a way to avoid.
Because this will provide the friction to get rid of a percentage.
Yeah, that's what's so bad about it. That's why I don't like the politics of these like corporate situations, because it's you hired a bunch of people and you hired them remotely, like in jobs that were probably, I'm speculating here, but that were probably labeled as remote only. And then you get to the point where you have high real estate costs that you're not being able to take advantage of. And you have executives who are coming back to the office and not seeing other people there wanting to hang out with them. And then they decide, okay, well, our stock price isn't where I want it to be, and we've overhired. So let's do a return to the office plan. And then that just automatically cuts out a percentage of that overhiring you did. And then that executive ends up looking as if they've done something really positive to the bottom line when reporting time comes around and the stock price goes up. It's like the cycle is it's anti-worker, it's anti-consumer. Like, who is it for? Tell me who wins in this scenario.
I feel like when GTA 6 comes out and I take my character and I walk him into the strip club to get a lap dance, I feel like I'm going to be able to tell the difference if that was all put together by someone working remotely versus in office.
Actually, we're getting a call
developers.
Here.
I feel like if the developers are like building all of that in office, as I'm getting the lap dance, if I pan around, I expect to see more coffee cups in the room.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we just got the CEO of Van Dieven Enterprises just called and told us that we need to come back to the office too.
This is my last one. Google announced that third-party Fitbit apps and watch faces are not going to be supported in the EU beginning in June 2024. You know something? As I mentioned earlier, for a long time, I searched for a watch that was worth a crap to own and wear if you're using an Android device. And at one point, the Fitbit was one of them that I tried. There's a Fitbit watch. I don't remember what it's called. It's utterly inconsequential. There's no reason I would remember what it's called. But I bought that because it looked like a smartwatch more than it looked like a fitness device. Granted, I'm into fitness, but I wanted a smartwatch, you know?
Yeah.
And so I gave that a shot. And one of the things I noticed almost immediately was just how deballed it was when you went in there to install apps. Installing apps on a Fitbit is such an afterthought. It is such a ho-hum. You know what? You can try and install some apps. Listen. We appreciate it. You bought this Fitbit. We're very thankful. But listen, just use it with what's on there, because if you think you're going to get in that app store and start installing some apps, just know that, you might be a little disappointed.
Is that like, did you ever, as a kid, do you remember your parents or anyone, friends, someone around you saying, hey, we bought you like when the Game Boy came out, we bought you a video game system, and they hand you that little device that has the LCD screen with the black bars on it, and it has the D-pad and an A and B button, but you can't actually do anything because the screen has like 3 views of what shows up on the LCD screen. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
No, not at all.
Oh, they were the worst. And they weren't cheap. Like, they weren't really games. They had like a MIDI sound.
Oh, you know what? I do know what you're talking about because we had a Donkey Kong one.
Yeah, they're
and we
terrible.
also had some gimped out Pac-Man, one of those. Yes.
Where it had like 5 frames. And as you're moving, like you're supposed to envision that the game is playing as it's going.
And a lot of them had those vacuum displays. I forget what they're called. They're like fluorescent vacuum displays or vacuum fluorescent displays. A lot of them had that as opposed to just the backlit LEDs. But yeah,
that's
I know
what
exactly
I think
what
of.
you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I think of when you describe that Fitbit. It's like, yes, you bought a watch.
It's terrible.
Yes, it can have an app.
Garbage. I cannot believe for the life of me that Google purchased Fitbit. And to think about how long ago they purchased Fitbit. I mean, they purchased Fitbit years before they rolled out Android 3, or I'm sorry, Wear OS 3, their watch operating system. And when they did roll it out, I didn't see any obvious benefit to the platform as a result of Google owning Fitbit. In fact, every single thing that might be attributable to Google's ownership of Fitbit is stuff that you would find on any wearable device. It's got nothing at all to do with Fitbit. I mean, I guess if you're getting anything by buying Fitbit, maybe you're getting a core constituency that is willing to pay whatever stupid monthly fee to get whatever
you're
fitness
getting health
statistics.
Data.
Yeah, I mean, I can't
really
imagine paying for that. I can't imagine it. I mean, just go out and walk every day and drink plenty of water. You'll be fine. You don't need to know.
They actually have pedometers that you can use that don't have to connect to anything.
You don't need to know the average number of heartbeats at 1:23 p.m. every day this month on this date versus last month. That is of no benefit to you whatsoever. But you're going to pay for that. I just don't know what people think they're extracting from this.
I want you to go look, and maybe you've looked at it before, but I want your first take at some point of the Wise watch. Like, because
I didn't know they had one. Oh, well, you know what? I did know they had one. I saw it. It's like $35. Is that the one?
And they break really easy.
Oh, boy, it looks like such a piece of crap. But you know something? The cameras are so great. I would expect good things.
You don't want them
watch.
Anymore, though. So in the past, we've recommended Wise. We have we retract our recommendation of Wise because that company has no idea how to do security.
Well, any recommendation of Wise went right out the window whenever you had your conversation with them that we talked about in the previous show, which nobody can hear because your levels were bad. No, they can hear it. They're just going to have to find a way to deal with it, I guess. I don't know.
Boost it.
Boost it. You're going to boost it.
Yeah, boost it.
Find a website that'll boost your videos.
Use AI. I would like everyone to know this was a very AI-friendly production anyway. We try to use AI to generate as much as we can. But I want to come back to watches. Friend of the show.
You better do it
Gatun.
fast.
Yeah, friend of the show, Gatun, is a big fan of Android, and he uses the Garmin watch to get notifications. You should check those out.
Yeah, a lot of people who are Android users swear by the Garmin watches and, in fact, position them as the better alternative. This is Spec Sheet. I'm Michael. He's Curtis. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Take a look at our website, which is specsheet.tech. It is specsheet.tech. Take care now, and bye-bye then.